Hello, my name is Tapua, and sorry I'm a bit behind. I'm going to be sharing my thoughts, feelings, ratings, and reviews, and giving an overview of all of the books that I read in March. I read 6 books in March, which is part of the reading goal that I set for myself to read 6 books a month, so I'm pretty much on par with that. So I'm keeping up with that quite well. And my average rating for the books that I've read in March is 3.33, which is not that great, but it wasn't absolutely terrible. So stick around while I tell you what I thought, what I liked, what I didn't. And if you're new, hi, I'm Tapua. I make videos detailing my life as a South African, and that includes vlogs and bookish content as well. And if that's something that interests you, please do check it out. And also, if there are any videos that you'd like to see me make, please do let me know in the comments down below. Make sure that you're following my TikTok as well. I'll have that linked down below so that you can stay tuned for all of my content that I'm creating. March was a bit of a tough month for me. I usually read either in the morning before I wake up or before I go to sleep, but doing it with a full-time job has been a bit difficult for me. I've found that I'm just super tired before I go to bed, and I barely read even 10 pages. So March was very difficult to stick to my goals in terms of reading. So I feel like I have to adopt more sustainable habits around reading during the week. But in terms of April, I found that I've picked a lot better books that I've been enjoying so far, so I think it's just going to be a matter of trial and error where I'm trying to find books that I will enjoy in the future. And another thing about this review is that I'll be giving my ratings, but I also will try to keep it pretty much spoiler free so that if you haven't read the books, you can still walk away with anticipation towards the book, because I won't really spoil everything that happens in the books as well. So let's get started. The first book that I read this month is I Who Have Never Known Men, and I gave this book 3 stars, mainly because the book had a bit of a lackluster ending, which left me disappointed after all of the reviews that I've seen online along the lines of this is the best book that they've ever read and this is such an amazing book. I just felt it was a bit lackluster in comparison to how much I had anticipated. This book is speculative fiction, and it takes place in an unknown land where 40 women are locked in a bunker where their only interaction with other human life is with the gods. Our protagonist is part of this group of 40 women. We follow her along in her life through this strange country after an unexpected event occurs in that country, which leaves the women faced with their place in that land. I really enjoyed the themes that this book explored about the human condition, how humans gather and cope together and create a tradition together, and how we are always seeking to feel normal and part of a clan. I found the book interesting in those elements, although after a while we become accustomed to the new normal of the characters. And as that happens, more questions arise, which I feel are not resolved in a satisfying way. And it was frustrating because there was an unending feeling of despair. So many of the same and different actions yielded the same results, in my opinion. And this might make it seem like I didn't like the book, but that's not the case. I just feel like this book exists more to create speculation and to prompt the reader to think about the conditions, which the author leaves out a lot of information which could have made more sense to the situation for the reader to come to their own conclusions, which wasn't without definitively resolving that. Unfortunately, left me feeling like there wasn't enough resolution in the book. The second book that I read in March was Lovers Discourse by Xiaolu Gu. Please forgive my pronunciation. And I picked this up after seeing the synopsis on TikTok, and I felt compelled that this would be an interesting read for me. It is a contemporary literature story about love, desire, language, and the meaning of home, told in conversation between 2 lovers. I rated this book 3 stars, and one of the first things that stand out about this book is the short stanza-esque structure of the book, which makes it very approachable, and it closely mimics the structure of an ongoing conversation that we as readers are privy to witnessing that is occurring between the lovers. I would have rated the book higher if I'd felt more connection and love between the main characters. First few chapters were beautiful, but as the story went on, the actions of the lovers towards each other become more mundane and fragmented. The way that the man was centered in his decisions throughout the book whilst dealing with an immigrant woman felt like there was a bit of a power dynamic at play, which I didn't enjoy. Overall, the book taught me a lot, and there were definitely moments of beauty, sharing facets of both Chinese and German culture and exploring how multiculturalism exists in the world. But unfortunately, the book did not strike me as all that memorable or moving. So that's why I gave it 3 stars. After reading A Lovers Discourse, I did a complete 180 and I read Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. This book was such a ride. It was also a book club pick, and it is a dramatic thriller which hit a little bit too close, only because it had such a darkness emanating from the first pages up until towards the end of the book. I personally don't like books like this that are portraying suffering for entertainment without lessons to be learned behind it, and portraying and platforming dark and very evil characters. And for that reason and other reasons as well, this book was not the easiest book to read. I found myself willing myself to finish it simply on the basis of needing to finish it for my book club meeting. Overall, I would say that it is subpar with an overcomplex plot and a very obvious ending. But with all that being said, I can't say that this book was absolutely horrible or caused righteous indignation within me, so that's why I gave it 3 stars. This book for me was absolutely chilling due to the villain in the book, which we had to basically read from their perspective to try and understand them, which I didn't like. I didn't feel that it was necessary, and it also didn't empathize that character to me. And I felt like delving into the villain's perspective really didn't do much but add a little bit of context, yes, but also a lot of darkness that didn't really justify all of the suffering that the book contained. And in this book, when we got to the climax, or essentially the reveal, it felt a bit stale, essentially portraying or outlaying something that had been given to us from the first chapter, and that if you were speculating about the motive and the actual series of events that occurred in the book, you would have been doing it since the first chapter, because all of the information was pretty easily laid out for us as readers, which kind of removed a lot of the fun. There were no other alternatives in terms of what could actually be secret to be revealed, so that was kind of disappointing as well. And the next book that I read is Surrounded by Idiots. This book is internationally recognizable, and I actually got this book from work, so I was actually very surprised and appreciative of that. And this book is the first in a whole Surrounded By series that Thomas Erickson has created, and I know that there are other ones like Surrounded By Psychopaths, Bad Bosses, Vampires, and there's probably more out there as well. And he's really milking this pop psychology framework that he's created. And this book is a pop psychology / self-help book which aims to categorize people into color-coded categories and teach us, depending on which colors you align with, how to more effectively communicate with other people that may be of your similar color or of different colors. My rating for this book is 4 stars. It was a really easy read, and he basically laid out the premise of the entire book in a very simple and understandable way. And yeah, that's pretty much all that I have to say about this book. Next up, I read Conversations with Friends by Sunny Rooney, and this book is a bit hard to describe, but it is about Frances, and she is a college student in Ireland, and along with her childhood best friend Bobby, we follow their interaction with the married couple, Melissa and Nick. Melissa is a journalist, and she initially purchased the girls with hopes of doing a piece on them and their artistic work as performance poets. And we also explore the emotions of her friendship with Bobby, and as things go on, the relationship existing between Frances, Bobby, and Melissa and her husband Nick develop and eventually unravel, which leads to moments of self-discovery for Frances, while also grappling with other topics within herself, such as her health and as well as her ambitions in life and also her family. I gave this book 3 stars. I really enjoy Sally Rooney's writing. She really transports you into the feelings and the emotion of the character that she's writing about, and she also portrays the common and very complex friction that exists in relationships between people, and she does this in a very honest way. But truthfully, I couldn't relate to Frances and her self-sabotaging nature, and I also felt that because we're mostly in Frances's POV, I found found it hard to kind of wrap my mind around the dynamics that she was painting at times, in terms of a way certain characters would feel. It would be almost like, because we're seeing things through Francis's lenses, I also felt quite insecure and unsure about characters and not believing that they were feeling what they were expressing, which was kind of destabilizing. And as for the ending, it kind of insinuated that things were going to go on in the similar way that the dynamic continues on in the way that it has been through the book, which was a bit disappointing for me considering all that we had gone through with Francis. But if you are looking for a book that depicts human relationships in a fun and sometimes frustrating way, written very beautifully, you might like this book. The next book I read was All's Well by Mona Awad, and it is a contemporary fiction horror with a little bit of magical realism. And our main character, Miranda, works as a professor in drama at a college in New Hampshire, somewhere in the east coast of America. And Miranda is facing chronic illness as well as having to put on their annual play, which for this year is a much contested choice of All's Well That Ends Well by Shakespeare. Throughout this process, she reaches her breaking point physically, and in a very Shakespearean way, she is visited by three strange men who alter the course of her life going forward. I didn't know this book had so many Shakespeare elements in it, and I must say I'm not mad because it had such a great base for drama. And this book was written quite in depth, so you can fully grasp the entirety of the transformation that occurs to our story and also to the main character. I actually don't know why this book isn't more popular. It is such a great novel. It actually turned out to be my favorite book this entire month. And I also just found Miranda to be beyond whether she was likable or not, because the whole premise of the book is watching her slowly slip deeper and deeper into the mess that she has found herself in, which I found really intriguing. And I also love how this book toes the line between reality and something that would exist in a Shakespeare play. I loved how the book ended. It wasn't perfectly wrapped up in a perfect bow, but the resolution felt very complete, very full circle, if I can say. But I will say, because the book was so in-depth, there were a couple moments where I felt like it required a lot of effort to stick with the book, which is something I do not regret doing at all. I really enjoyed the themes explored in this novel, and I thought that they were done so well. And if you like the vibe of a tragic and magical Shakespeare play, then you should definitely give this book a go. Those are the books that I read in March, mostly middle of the road, but I hope that months like these allow me to gain more insight into the books that I would enjoy reading in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.